Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legion Dev Panel, a hive of scum and villainy.
Are we the hive or the scum of the villainy?
All of the above, my
Yes.
friend. So we've got a ton of content to go through in the next 90 minutes. We're going to be talking about pretty much everything that you can expect for the next several months of Legion, going right into 2023 and a little bit beyond that. So, with that said, I'm Will Schick, Director of Product Development for Time West Games. To my left is...
I'm Will Pagani, the Development Manager.
I am Simone Elliott, the head of studio.
I'm Marco Segovia, the director of sculpting.
So we're going to be kind of talking about a holistic thing in addition to game rules and design. We're going to be talking about art, which Simone Elliott has graciously stepped in for one Preston Stone, who was supposed to be with us at the original mini-stravaganza, but unfortunately because of the delay and the reschedule, is not able to be with us in studio today. So she's going to be talking about all the cool art. And Marco is going to be taking us through the entire design and concepting and sculpting process to kind of explain how each of these things we're going to look at came into reality to become the beautiful miniatures that they will be when they hit store shelves, and you all get to pick them up, put them together, paint them, and play with them. The first thing we want to start off with, though, is something that was released last week and we've been talking about a bit, and that is the new battle forces for Legion, specifically the ones for the four main factions, Rebels, Empire, Republic, and Separatists. Pagani, why don't you just take us through a little bit of the design process and thoughts, the goals for the battle forces, like what to expect going forward, hit all of the good stuff about this brand new world for Legion.
Yeah, so the idea behind the battle forces is that they give players an additional way to use their armies and their miniatures that are not the standard way of doing it. And the hope here is not that these ever replace normal gameplay, right? It's always an additional thing that you can add in to the game to build depth and choice for the players. So to kind of run through a little bit of each of the ones, the ideas behind them. The Echo-based defenders here are a very defensive force. This is the Rebels trying to hold out for long enough for their escape craft to escape Hoth. And yeah, so you're going to see a lot of things like the standby tokens from the command cards, a lot of defensive units, a lot of Hoth-themed units. So you have all that kind of stuff.
And this, it was a really great kind of way to dive into the scenes that we see in the movie and kind of give players a chance to recreate in many ways on their Legion tabletops. Those iconic moments in Battle Forces are really indicative and pulled from those things. Simone, I know that you love this art piece. You had a lot of commentary as Preston was doing it.
So, not just creating iconic things, but the things you wish could have happened, like Leia leading the forces just out there charging. You got Han still on the Tauntaun. You got Chewbacca there. Like, this is the moment that maybe I wish I could have seen and didn't. But now Preston has made this beautiful art for me, so you all get to enjoy it. And you get to kind of imagine the things that could have happened. Like also with Blizzard Force, that one is one that I'm very excited about as well.
I think that's the one we're going to be moving on to.
I think so.
next.
Who knew that I knew the order of the things?
Yeah. It's magic.
These papers are completely empty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this
there's
just so we look like newscasters, like
Yes, we get to...
Oh, you can't even see me. I'm not. Yes,
No.
thank you, Pagani, for backing me up on that one.
I got you.
So Mr. Darth Vader there, standing triumphantly on the hill. That was a conversation.
That was a lot of conversation about, would he be there? How would that look? And in the end, we were able to create this amazing piece. I actually kind of like the fact that he's in the back doing his thing, and everybody, like, you got your snowtroopers in the front. It's a great piece. This is a moment where I'm going to talk about the other thing I love with Preston's composition of how he put these all together is that we did these great pieces so that we could use parts of them for the command cards.
Yeah, each of the three command cards that are unique to the battle forces, the art from those comes from each of these large sort of box cover pieces. Personally, I really like this one because you get a really good color variance between like the fire down at the bottom. The red lasers look really great on the blue. It's just
Good contrast of lighting and the color. That's
just
really
fantastic.
nice.
Absolutely fantastic. And then Blizzard Force is, of course, a very offensive army here. It's meant to push forward. It's got the snowtroopers that are sort of that unrelenting advance of the Empire. And you see that in a lot of these suppression mechanics that are built into the command cards, the units, things like that. So I really like how that is sort of shown in this art as well as in the gameplay.
So I think 501st is next, and this one I really like for a number of reasons. One of the things you talked about initially with the goals for Battle Forces is that Battle Forces aren't meant to replace standard army compositions. They're not necessarily built to become the next big competitive thing. They're built to be fun, thematic, and give players a chance to really hone in on things that they may identify with, that they may really love, provide some benefits for a limited army construction, and kind of build out from there. And I think the 501st is a great example of that idea of, we see Anakin Skywalker leading his 501st clones. ARC troopers are super cool. It's very difficult in a standard army composition to really focus on them. Our goal here wasn't necessarily to make the next great Republic army. It was to create a vehicle by which players who really love these troops and want to play with them a chance to be able to do that, and to give them some tools to manage kind of the detriments of a more elite high point army.
Absolutely. And I think it also gives a lot of hobby opportunities for all of these battle forces, right? Like, we may not necessarily make exactly the miniatures that are represented by some of these things, but it gives players and hobbyists the chance to do that themselves. So you can sort of, make specialist ARC troopers that are specific to the 501st and stuff. And I think that's really, really great.
Yeah. And kind of a little, in creating the art for this, we don't get to do that many big battle scenes for Legion art. And this just feels like Clone Wars to me.
Absolutely.
You have entered the scene, everything is happening, and I just love Anakin standing there trying to lead everybody, and they're maybe getting a little overrun, but they're going to survive.
They got Anakin and Rex got this. They got this.
Look at all those ATRTs back there.
Oh, that is
coming.
true.
They're coming.
It's the cavalry. And then the last one, of course, is the Separatist Invasion. This one, it's like B1s, more B1s, and more B1s. So sometimes battle forces kind of mimic, standard competitive styled army construction, and that's also okay. I think this is kind of a fun corollary to the 501st, where the 501st isn't necessarily optimized, but it lets you experience units and clones in a way that is very thematic and can be very fun and identifiable to people, versus something that almost feels like home, but adds a couple of restrictions and a couple of different variances on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we can line up sort of the idea of Star Wars and the things that we're trying to represent here on the table with also how people are already playing, that's just a win-win. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and for me, anytime that we can tell Preston, get Grievous in here doing his Grievous stuff is phenomenal.
Doing his thing.
Yeah.
Leading them droids.
Look, I've worked with Preston a long time. He knows what the Grievous stuff is.
Just put more Grievous stuff in
Give me
there.
more Grievous. He will do it.
So that kind of wraps up everything we kind of want to talk about Battle Force. This is going to be really important as we dive forward, because we're going to be talking about more Battle Forces that are on the way.
We certainly are.
Because this is not a one-and-done thing. This is very much like a new direction forward, and you're going to be seeing Battle Forces alongside new releases. And a lot of the things we talk about have Battle Forces that are tied into them. So if these ones aren't your cup of tea, there are more coming. And if you're but you're missing Ahsoka Tano from the 501st or things like that, these are also living documents. So they will change and evolve as new releases come out. They're not locked in stone. And of course, that's why they live online as print and play as well. So if you haven't checked them out yet, you can go to atomicmassgames.com, download the rules for yourself, and start using them in all of your games. These are legal for all modes of play. So go enjoy, take a look at the first four, and we're excited to start talking about now the future.
The future!
And give Marco a chance to talk about some really awesome sculpts that are coming up. So one of the things we mentioned last mini-stravaganza, if you're with us, is that a big kind of touch point after the Shadow Collective was kind of us diving into the Mandalorian and the show and all the great characters and things that we see in that. So the first big thing we're going to be talking about, which is coming out at the end of the year, and we're going to be focusing on with some hobby panels and stuff like that throughout the course of the next 3 days, is the Mandalorian content, and that, of course, starts with
Din Djarin and Grogu.
Look at that little cutie.
Wonderful paint job.
These were actually revealed at Star Wars Celebration in a panel that
that
Simone
was
Elliott
me.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, you did that.
I thought you were
that.
there. You were not. It's fine.
I was not. I was not there. I was there for the start, but not the end.
In spirit.
I was there in spirit. Marco, talk to us a bit about this sculpt and everything that went through it, because I know you pretty much took this one from almost start to finish.
Yeah, our team kind of pulled it forward to the end of the finish line there. It really was pretty well developed, but we were still in the concepting phases. It was the focus and the struggle there was that obviously people, when they think of the Mandalorian, they think of that poster, that walking stride, and it was a struggle between choosing that or really emulating and exaggerating the cowboy western feel that the first season, that all of this is inspired by, is captured in the miniature. So it was more going in that direction of going the western gunslinger and that contrasted with Grogu's more like the internal force use and more subdued.
The magic hand.
Yeah, the magic hand.
Yeah.
Versus the gear over the top gunslinger momentum that we're giving Din here. And that's where we kind of wanted to keep going with this whole line of like bounty hunters to give that spirit of the first season of Mandalorian some life.
There was some exploration that happened in the middle where we were trying to go with a couple of options, right? And I know people love the options, but we often talk about on streams and stuff, you know, like why didn't this person get options? Like why is it just this way? Talk to us about that, because originally we were trying to have him both be able to be fast gunning his blaster pistol and also hold the Amban rifle. And there were very specific reasons why we abandoned that idea, and I think you can speak really well, and this is a great case study of how sometimes options just don't make sense.
I mean, it really comes down to it's a balance of multiple factors that come into play, and it was whether, well, like with the phrase we like to often use is the juice worth the squeeze. In this case, to give that option was something that we really wanted to give, but it's again to really sell the theme of the overall character and the overall line that's coming out in this wave with it. As much as we want to give as many options as we can, it also just comes down to various factors of, is this important to our timeline that we need to make sure that we're staying in line with the spirit of this wave.
And I think you talked a lot about how capturing that fast draw from the hip like pose was really important. And this kind of ties back into like when you're doing sculpts, we talk a lot about anatomy and physiology, right?
Yeah,
And
when you have different
you can't
shoulders,
do a rifle and do the same, right? Like talk a little bit about that, like shoulder positioning, chest positioning.
Because it's just the subtleties of like, well, he's gonna have a rifle, he's not gonna shoot from the waist.
Right.
Like so obviously he's gonna hold it properly, but the problem is that now your shoulders are raised, and so now that all this area, and then on top of the armor that's cluttering the collar area, that doesn't really provide a good, clean way to swap those arms to that cool classic gunslinger low aim shot, and that's where we had to make that hard choice, and we feel that this is with all confidence the best way to.
Yeah, and I think especially where he's sitting like with Grogu, I feel him cool. Like he just looks so much cooler in his
and
shooting from the
and
hip.
like we said, like that contrast of like where it's Grogu's more the Force and like just that fun little character, and then also contrasted with Mandalorian's gear and like that gunslinger attitude.
And the Amban rifle is an interesting one too, because as we were working through the pose and the sculpting concept and stuff, it actually translated really well with the developments that were happening on the rules side, which is originally the Amban rifle was like a weapon equipment slot that effectively added different dice. But then Pagani, you and the team decided to go an entirely different way, which we'll talk about here.
Yes.
And actually, I think we're going to show it.
I think we are too.
So we'll save that for a little bit, but it was fun to see like the rifle went from being something that you would want to see on the miniature a lot to something that made sense to not be the focus of the mini because of the way the card interacted in the rules and stuff. But yeah, I think it was a really interesting time, and we had a lot of hard discussions because, you know, we took it like right, as I recall, we took it like right to the deadline of trying to make both poses work, and then eventually the question really became like,
did.
yeah,
There was a number of iterations.
I know, and then I think like, but I remember sitting down in that room and everyone was just like, look, you were like, we can do this, but this is what it's going to look like. And ultimately it was, I'd rather have one amazing looking miniature than two like 50%.
We might as well just go all the way with it.
Yeah.
And our poor Evan.
he did a lot of Mandalorian iterations, it's true. But that's how you get here. So that was really cool. Let's take a look at the art that went along with this guy and have Simone Elliott talk about her boy.
Ooh. Okay. By my boy, I only mean Grogu. Like,
that's what we were talking about, right?
Look at that cutie. Preston obviously did a lot of work on these, and capturing so much personality in someone who is just helmeted and kind of stoic, but the way his little hand curves around Grogu, I love it.
Very
It warms your
protective.
heart.
Yes.
Just giving him little ear scritches.
Little ear scritches. Who doesn't love an ear scritch?
Who doesn't love ear scritches? I think the way they captured the reflectiveness of the Beskar armor and everything. I love how the Legion terrain element is in the background. That little like moisture evaporator thing.
I
little
assembled
spinny
so
wheels.
many of those.
Yeah, it just,
Yep.
it's a great piece, super strong, and obviously this is the Unicard art.
Yep.
I think there's more art to look at.
There sure is.
The magic hands?
The magic hands.
The
Like you
hand
can't,
thing.
you can't not have this.
With his little face.
Like so determined, a little pudgy cheeks. Anyway,
Got Din in the background there.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I love that Preston does with his art, is that he always gives a little, like, little things in the background that you're not...
In
that's
the
not
background, a reflection
or
in
something
something.
hidden within the art. That
Well, it's a whole story there.
yeah, right?
And,
yeah.
and we all watched this story, so we know what's going on here. But like this art piece, I think, tells a great story.
Yeah. He's fantastic.
And then I believe that we have the Amban sniper rifle
We do.
and the whistling birds.
Great
which-
piece.
You can't have Din without whistling birds.
Yeah.
Right. That scene in the show was just so fantastic.
And it's probably worth noting that the vast majority of the design and inspiration came primarily from season 1 for everything that we're going to talk about.
Correct, yes.
So, there's room to explore later on Din Djarin. You're not going to see him with the Darksaber.
Correct. Yes. Was that a question?
I don't know. That
I was waiting for you to tell me I'm wrong. There's so many things going on.
Nope.
Yeah. So again, that's kind of the inspiration for this iteration of The Mandalorian and the Child. There's always possibilities and options to expand in the future and create new versions. We're going to be talking about one of those, which is Boba Fett, but that's going to be in a little bit. So just some awesome art. Let's talk about how this art, the sculpt, everything got crammed into dev and design.
Let's do it.
And take us away, Pagani.
So I believe we have a unit card to show first. And the unit card for Din, Din in general, let me actually take one step farther back. A lot of operatives in general are ranged units, right? They're meant to stay farther back, they're meant to shoot, especially things like Boba Fett, and a lot of the other bounty hunters are very range oriented. We wanted Din to not just be like another option inside of that bucket. We wanted him to be a little more aggressive in how he plays, because you always see him going headfirst into situations. He's not worried about stuff. He's got Beskar armor. He's an aggressive person, right?
He gets punched a lot.
He gets punched a lot.
A lot.
And he punches a lot.
Yeah.
So this card here shows a lot of ways for him to sort of move forward and be aggressive. His primary range attack is only range 2 instead of range 3 or 4, like a lot of these other things. And we're going to talk a little bit about the rifle here in a little bit, which you mentioned earlier. And so the goal for that was to make him sort of a more forward brawler piece, much more than a sit back and plink people off piece. And then we also played a lot with how aim tokens work on Din and what you can use them for. So you're going to see a lot of lethal, long shot. You have tactical to get aim tokens. So you have a lot of different ways and different sort of resources that you're playing with, including positioning for how effective Din is going to be on the table.
And of course, you'll see that Din is a mercenary option, so he follows all the mercenary rules. He can work for Empire or Rebels, so this is the first instance of bounty in Rebels.
That's true. That is true.
And there is a specific specification when it comes to Grogu, which we're going to talk about.
Yes, I think that might be maybe a couple more cards down. Oh, no, Tony's got us. Here we go. So here's a Grogu. So there's a mini game that you get to play with Grogu called Hunted, and if you defeat Grogu or Din, you're going to drop a little Grogu token on the table that you get to pick up, and you're going to score bonus victory points for whoever has that at the end of the game.
Why would you be that evil?
I apologize for nothing.
You got to steal
Okay,
him.
great.
He's
Fair. Noted.
the child. Everybody wants the child. You got to steal him.
And then Latent Power shows that Grogu doesn't really know how to use his powers yet, so it's based on a die roll here on what effect you're going to get out of him using the Force. And it can do some really mean things. It can add a bunch of suppression, it can immobilize, it can heal people, it can remove poison. So, like, he's got all this stuff going on in there.
And Grogu also has a really important effect on where Din can be taken. If you decide you want to play Din with Grogu, you can only take them in Rebels because Grogu is a Rebel-only upgrade option. So if you want him to work for the Empire, he will do that. We obviously see him just kind of being a malicious bounty hunter to start. He's just a working man. He'll work for anybody. But once he meets little Grogu, his heart warms up, and he stops kind of, being willing to work for anybody in general. I think next we're going to talk about some of the upgrade cards that he has, and then probably go into some of the command cards. And they're both there.
Look at that.
Look at that.
The 2-for-1.
Look at that.
So the design on these two cards is sort of the first Atomic Mass Games philosophy applied to Legion upgrade cards and Legion command cards, which is you're going to see very irregular and not sort of standardized text on cards. So Din's Amban rifle here is a melee weapon that you can poke people with, which is great because he's stabbing people with it all the time in the game. They disintegrate and all that cool stuff. Or you can spend 2 of your actions, so that's the first time that's ever happened in Legion as well, is 2 actions to use this ability, and Din gets to move and then fire off a quick shot. But it's not an actual ranged attack. It's just roll a red die. If you roll a crit or a hit, it does a wound and gains the suppression, which can be very powerful, right? You have no chance to block it. There's no cover involved or anything like that. You can just apply suppression to people. So it gives that really different feeling than a normal ranged attack. And we also didn't want to give him like this really great ranged attack because we didn't want him to be a ranged fighter, right? So that was really the goal there, is to make this not a ranged focused character. And that was a really interesting and different thing to talk about the design for and the development for, is how do we make his rifle not make him a great ranged fighter while still sort of building into this idea of he's a close combat brawler, essentially. And then Whistling Birds it just makes me smile.
Yeah, I remember when you initially came up with the idea for this, and we started doing some of the math on it, and we were like, is this just too much? Is it not enough? And it went to playtest, and I love the idea behind this because it is just so, like you said, it's so different. It's very thematic. Playtesters had a blast with it. I know there was a lot of like, what?
There's a lot of like, you're crazy, you're not crazy, it should be white dice, black dice, red. Like, we went through all sorts of different iterations on this. And we came out with, once again, a very unique card that is vaguely similar and reminiscent to some of the older things, like the General Grievous command card lets him attack a bunch of people around him. Boba Fett has something very similar. Character-based cards are 1-pip cards, which lets you sort of get that initiative. But because it's a 3-pip card, it lets you play around it. You can get away from Din. You can do all this kind of stuff. So, very interesting card. Very fun to work on and design on that one.
All right, so that is Mandalorian and Child. We're going to be moving on to some other bounty hunters, inspired by both the Mandalorian and the classic trilogy, and a bit of the Clone Wars. The IG Assassin Droid series, which is IG-88 and IG-11. So Marco, talk to us a little bit about these sculpts. Obviously, this pack will make both droids.
Yes.
And you do have some options in how you assemble each one. So
yeah, you have various you can actually get a few poses here with the arms. I even was able to play around with just the 2 bent arms to give it like that cowboy standoff pose like that. So like, it's definitely, again, emulating that Western feel on top of also just how these types of droids walk and work. We saw that in, I believe, the season 2 of Mandalorian with IG-11, how he walks around and it's very stiff but turns around 360. So we wanted to emulate that with the walking one as well. And it also comes with a little melee weapon that you can glue on to the back as well as a little add-on bonus. And it's definitely, it's fun. This pack is really fun to put together. And oh, my bad.
The gong.
The gong. That's my time, guys.
Your time is taken.
Goodbye, Marco.
Let's move on. Okay, so I think we have artwork next. Now that Marco's been gonged off the show, so goodbye, Marco. Thank you. Talking about that inspiration, here it is from season 1, that amazing opener where our little IG-11 went nuts.
He just went nuts. I love this piece. He looks so loose and free for a bot. What?
An assassin droid is never freer than when it's murdering masses of people.
Yes. What?
You got to live your truth.
He is living his truth. He's having his best life at this moment.
Tony's just looking at you like, my God.
Maybe I should have been gonged off. No, I love that. Like, he is living his best murder droid life, and that's fantastic. I also love, like, this echoes so much of how you can pose him in the miniature as well. So this piece is absolutely fantastic. I'm too distracted now. It's great.
I think we have the art for, so this is IG-11, IG-88.
See, living less of his best life, friends.
IG-88 always struck me as the crankier assassin.
Correct.
Droid, to be fair, like he's a curmudgeon. IG-11, full of life.
Full of life.
we're going to see a full-of-life IG-11 here.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the last piece is actually one of the programming cards for IG-11, which is nanny programming.
That's the best life right there.
Yeah.
So
Well, like, he's found his true purpose here, and he is now. He thought he was living his best life in
Yeah.
the previous one. This is really
He
still
realized,
murdering,
correct.
but with a heavy
But
dash
baby.
of love.
a heavy dash of love. Goodness
Okay,
me.
let's talk dev and design a little bit about nanny programming here, because this is really important.
Sure.
Here are the unit cards for both these guys. Pagani, take us through kind of the thoughts, what makes them different and unique choices. You'll see that IG-88 only works for Empire. IG-11 works for both Empire and Rebels.
Yeah, so I mean they're armored, so it's going to make them tankier than a lot of other units. And sort of the difference between the two is IG-88 has Arsenal 2, so IG-88 can create larger dice pools for shooting single targets. IG-11 has Gunslinger for hitting multiple targets at the same time.
Riffing off that Season 1.
Absolutely. They're both impervious because you can't pierce them.
Armor.
Like they got that armor.
Yeah.
Which is going to make them better against lightsabers and piercing weapons in general. And then sharpshooter, because they're not throwing very large dice pools necessarily, that they need that sort of get through cover. And that shows that they're very deadly, very, very precise killers. And you'll notice IG-11 has a programming slot, which we mentioned just a moment ago, which could be nanny programming or another programming that I don't think we're going to talk about.
No, not
So
yet.
I'm not gonna-
We're going to save that for later. You
I'm not
gotta
going to
wait.
spoil that one here.
But you will spoil nanny programming.
Yeah, so nanny programming lets you add Grogu to IG-11, which is hilarious to me. I mean, look at that art; it's just fantastic. And then, of course, IG-11 gets more into a defensive protect Grogu mode, so that AI dodge or move, whereas the other programming will make IG a little more aggressive.
Yes.
And they're fighting, but we're not going to say much more than that on that one.
Yeah, so this was a really fun kind of way to, again, mimic the show with the rules and the art, because we do see IG-11 really take that protector role at the end of the season with Grogu after he's rebuilt and reprogrammed. And it also gives that kind of nice differentiation between 88 and 11, because you can companion Grogu with him. You don't have to.
They're hanging out; they're best friends.
Yeah,
So
they
there's-
are.
There's some decent amount of customization that you can do when it comes to how you want to kit out your IG-11. So with that, I believe. Oh, there's a bunch of command cards, right? These guys all come with command cards.
There's a bunch of command cards.
4 of them, I think. Right?
Yes.
2 per and a general.
We're gonna maybe
That would be
see.
5.
We're not.
We're
not
not.
according
I
to the
said
paper.
maybe.
There's nothing on this.
In the
paper.
future.
Oh, Tony is giving me the no face.
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
That's for the
there's-
future.
I think it might be 5 command cards.
Yeah. Did I say 4?
I said 4.
And then I made numbers
think
that
it's 2
added
plus
to
2 plus
5
1,
because
yeah.
I'm good at math.
Look,
Perfect.
that's why I'm here. Counting.
It's true. You're not the math person. I don't make the Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of command cards for these, and there is a self-destruct one.
Of course.
There.
Of course.
So there you go.
Okay, continuing on the train of things, we actually showed the sculpt for this, and I believe we had a stream where Dallas actually painted the studio miniature of it.
He did.
And that is Boba Fett, Daimyo of Mos Espa.
Yeah.
And
Look at
this
that boy.
I know.
is exciting on a lot of angles. One, new version of Boba Fett, amazing moments from the show, both The Mandalorian and Book of Boba, which this guy has design elements pulled from both. And of course, he is the first 100% start to finish AMG Legion miniature.
Yeah.
So big milestone for you and your team. Marco, talk a little bit about everything
Oh,
that
boy.
went into it.
Yeah, I mean, this was pretty exciting because, I mean, this is the Boba Fett from The Mandalorian specifically. You gotta-
Very specific.
So you made that very clear to us about that this miniature was going to be specifically that. But yeah, and it also comes with both head options of masked and unmasked, so you get to see Boba Fett with his classic helmet and, of course, with his post-Sarlacc pit look that he has in that season. And also just to give him that sort of dynamism that we really wanted to see as he showed in his fight scene with the stormtroopers. And it was really fun to see how we were able to get that onto the table. And then, of course, Dallas and his painters just make it just look so great from afar. And it's just a really cool design that we were lucky to start on and take all the way to finish.
My favorite part of all of this design was simply the bringing in a golf club and then the 500 different poses of how do you make a big swing look right.
Oh my god.
And we didn't destroy any computers, so that's a win.
Right.
No walls were harmed.
Okay, let's take a look real quick at the art, and then we'll talk a little bit about his design. We'll take a look at the command cards and the stat card.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Okay, so we've obviously, over the years, with all the Star Wars games, done a lot of Boba Fett. But to be able to do Boba Fett at kind of this stage where, A, he's fixed up the helmet, everything's looking real sharp here, is very different from us. And it's not the full armor. I have to say, just the chromatic colory situation. I don't have art words, which is why I'm not a great Preston replacement, but that's fine. On the front of his blaster is absolutely amazing. Yeah.
And then next up is the Unicard art.
Bang.
Look at him. So beautiful. We had a lot of discussions about Jabba's palace in the background.
Yes, we did.
Which ultimately we won because of Book of Boba.
Yeah.
But we didn't know at the time.
Correct. So one of the other fun things about doing Boba at this point in his life is, he's older and kind of capturing, he's still got it, but, he's bigger now. Things are a little different. And the same thing kind of in the sculpting, capturing that different time period of him. And also, we got them great, swishiness in his Boba old man pants.
All right, let's take a look at, I believe his stat card is next. So let's talk about what defines the daimyo of Mos Espa from this one.
From that one.
But this is the new one.
Yeah. The new one.
He got me. I'm sorry.
Broke the guy.
So this Boba Fett is a lot less aggressive than the original Boba Fett, which just received an update in the card pack here. So you're going to see a lot more sort of long-range fighter use out of him here. So you've got the independent standby showing that he is patient. He has learned a lot more about life and bounty hunting, or not bounty hunting in some cases, and just hanging out, doing whatever you're doing with your standby token. He's got Sentinel, so he can use that standby token a little bit better. He's got Sharpshooter, he's got Tactical. So if he does need to move, he can move with Tactical, gain his aim tokens, still be a very effective ranged fighter. So, yeah, this is sort of the theme from this Boba Fett that sets him apart from the original Boba Fett, is he is
Patient.
He's more wise, more learned.
More learned, yes.
And he is a lot less selfish. And I don't mean that in his character is less selfish. I mean his cards are less selfish.
Let's take a look at the
So we're gonna
command
talk
cards
about-
because that's a big thing.
His character is also less selfish.
He is.
For sure.
He's learned.
I
So
just don't
3
wanna make
command
assumptions
cards,
No, fair.
and all of those kind of play into that older, wiser kind of tribe mentality where he's looking to create a coalition.
Yeah, he's helping his buddies. His buddies are helping him, and that's great until he makes his way in the galaxy. And
Yeah, and then he
very
just
angry.
messes things up.
and he pulls out that stick and just goes to town.
To town. Yeah, so these are really cool. They also work with, of course, original Boba Fett, so you get more options for the Empire version as well. Making his way in the galaxy, super terrifying
Yes, indeed.
on Empire Boba. So a very, very exciting time. The art obviously really pulled from the moment where he teams up with Din, and it's part of the thing that we looked at when we were playing and playtesting was these characters working together in thematic ways on the tabletop. Do they kind of complement each other? And I think Boba and Mandalorian, because you've got the Bruiser and Mandalorian, you've got the more supporty elements with this version of Boba Fett, the Daimyo. It's very fun, and it comes together really well to tell that story that we all saw in the amazing show. And of course, what are heroes, protagonists, without some amazing villains? So let's go ahead and show the last little bit from this first Mandalorian wave, and that is Moff Gideon and his Dark Troopers.
Oh yes.
So again, your team, Marco, pretty much start to finish on all of this stuff.
Yeah, this one was exciting as well because we had Dark Troopers that are flying.
Yeah.
Flight,
Yeah.
so that's fun. But we really were stepping away from trying to use flight stands and really wanted to take advantage of these guys who have the ability of flight to use effects to lift them up and give them more action in their poses and just make it more intimidating, right? Especially that guy with the rocket launcher there.
Yeah.
Frag cannon, I believe that's called.
And you'll notice that, of course, like all Legion units. These guys have some heavy weapon options. Heavy weapons were really fun. We actually were able to go into the Lucasfilm archives, find some unused concept art pieces.
Yeah.
So all of these are Lucasfilm designs that you didn't actually see in the show, but very cool. Let's see them painted, Tony. Just go forward. You don't have to wait for me. You got this. So the beautiful paint jobs that Dallas, Tony, and his team did to get everything done. Very sinister.
Very
Matches
sinister.
the art that we'll look at next here.
But that guy swinging that club, that is...
It's called a
great.
Myrtleizer,
I
ma'am.
know. I was going to let you spoil that.
The Myrtleizer.
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 And it is like... He's
Rhymes
got,
with turtleizer.
He's got so much
course.
attitude. And...
A common phrase in the ship
Yeah.
household.
Yeah.
Turtleizer.
Yeah, turtleizer.
yeah.
Okay,
Sculpts, paints, everything's great.
yeah, the artwork came in beautiful, really trying to capture the scene where they first come out of the
Yep.
hold, and then, of course, the Moff Gideon art for the unit, iconic, beautiful.
Standing
I think
on
you
that
had everything to
TIE
do with
fighter.
it, with the TIE Fighter.
Yeah, yeah, that's the moment I
There
wanted.
it is. Look at him.
Look at him in all of his
He's-
capey glory.
Capey glory.
Capey glory.
There you go.
And-
Capes are
That's-
pretty much the
that's
best
a new
out there,
thing.
so I'm
He's
here
got a
for it.
cape and a darksaber, friend.
Okay.
Only had 2 capes.
Now, all of these guys are coming out in early 2023, so you do have a little bit of time to wait for them. But it's mini extravaganza, so we show all the things, well, most of the things, 80% of the things, 70%
Things that
of
we're
the
like,
things.
now we're not
Some
going
of
to
the
show
things.
that thing. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and show the Dark Trooper Unicard and really blow people's minds,
Yes.
because these guys are maybe the wildest thing yet.
That we've shown so far, for sure.
For sure.
Who knows what's coming in the future?
Who knows?
So Dark Troopers, the first thing you're going to notice, because I always look at upgrades first, is there's 2 heavy weapon slots. So there's 3 different heavy weapons for this unit. There's 2 heavy weapon slots. You can pick your favorite 2.
Yep.
And then they have a programming slot as well. We're going to show a little bit. One of their programmings, we're not going to show both, I don't think.
We don't have a programming card at all.
We don't have any programming.
No
cards.
programming.
Oh, that one's in the...
Yeah.
We're going to play with one of the programming
Yeah.
cards. There
Yep.
we go.
Watch the game stream if you want to see these guys in
Yes.
action.
So,
Spoiler.
and then there are 2 new keywords here, both of which are very, very exciting. There's Unconcerned, which says, these guys, you never see them duck for cover, right? They're always just like
They weren't programmed for cover.
chilling, walking down a hallway, blasting stuff.
Being unconcerned.
And they're also pretty high tech, so
Yep.
normal people can't repair them or return them to play. And then Unstoppable is where the madness begins. Every unit in Legion only gets 1 order normally, but Dark Troopers can have 2 orders. They'll add 2 orders to your order pool, and they'll get to activate twice per round. And this was really, really fun in playtest because it created a unit that nothing like this exists anywhere in Legion, right?
And it really came out of the idea that we wanted... You'll also notice that they're a heavy option, which I think is
Yes,
kind of one of those
that's true.
things that is surprising and different. But we wanted the idea of how do we make kind of an expensive unit that feels like a replacement for a tank and also can play well within the order economy of Legion. And the idea that we came through discussions that turned out not to be as crazy as we initially thought was, what if they can activate twice? And they give you 2 orders, so all of a sudden now your economy is very different. And of course they work very well with Moff Gideon, who can take a lot of these guys, because, you know, there's boys, there's robot boys. This is just how it is. So Moff Gideon...
I want like a Robot Boys sticker.
Robot
on,
Boys,
like the top
yeah.
of a Dark Trooper helmet.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Gideon's boys, okay? Gideon's boys.
There we go.
And of course, Moff Gideon, we're not going to show his stat card quite yet. We got to save some things for the future, but we will show you one of his command cards. There's the beautiful miniature with his flowy red cape
The mustache.
and the Darksaber. Now, you do have options. You can equip him with the Darksaber as an upgrade card, as normally happens in Legion, or you can just leave him with his customary blaster pistol. And of course, the Darksaber is going to change his combat characteristics a bit and give him some advantages. We're just going to show the command card that he has that interacts directly with Dark Troopers. This one was quite the bear to get through playtest and make sure that it wasn't completely bonkers busted.
Yeah, so this essentially is the Dark Troopers coming down from the ship or redeploying, right? So, originally it was them coming down from the ship. So you would hold a unit of Dark Troopers off the table. They wouldn't deploy until later in the game. They can deploy anywhere they wanted. We didn't go with that. It was way too powerful to just show up whenever you want, to be super duper durable with your armor and 2...
That
2
sounds
wounds
very
each.
enjoyable, though.
Yeah, well,
For one side,
one
of it,
side
it
is
definitely
pretty
was.
good.
Definitely
other
was.
side, less
Yeah,
so.
so this just gives
Less
you
so.
some amazing repositioning, which
Yeah.
kind of makes up for their slow speed.
And I believe it takes one of their actions is where we ended up on this. So they don't get 2 activations that round. They only get the 1.
Yes.
Yeah. So you got to have a face-up order token. You flip a face down.
Yep. And it takes up one of their
Yeah.
activations.
So once again, that does mean though that they will get 1 of their activations.
Right.
So,
yeah, they still get to go once.
Yes.
And then the last thing to kind of talk about with this, we mentioned battle forces. You're going to see an Imperial Remnant battle force.
It's so cool.
It's wild and crazy, and it really dives into the flavor of what we see in the show, which is, the Imperial Remnant is made up of a mishmash of all these different Imperial trooper units that have survived kind of the destruction of the Death Star 2. They've been pulled together by powerful individuals like Moff Gideon, and they don't follow Imperial doctrine quite as closely as, the real Imperial Army does. So there's some mixing and matching that's allowed between your units and
You got
stuff.
to work with what you got.
That's pretty wild.
So
So that'll be coming out alongside these folks that, of course, focus on Gideon and the Dark Troopers as well as kind of the crazy Imperial Remnant idea. And we're very excited for people to see that. We'll be talking about more about that in the future, so stay tuned for that. I think we want to dive into organized play really quick, and then we got some Ewoks to talk about. So let's throw up Dynamic Exit really quick.
Yeah.
For those of you who love going to the stores, playing in different events, of course, we talked earlier about how Worlds is coming back finally to Adepticon 2023, and that will kick off the whole new circle psychic? I don't know. Circuit, whatever. Some
Both.
C word.
Circuit cycle.
Circuit of competitive play for Legion with plenty of global qualifiers and opens. So that is very exciting. Again, watch for more information about events in your area. Simone, during opening ceremonies, did list the ones that we know about that have been set up and will be coming for the rest of the year. There may be more before Adepticon launches, and we will continue to update folks on that. So Worlds is back. We're very excited to kick off the new thing. We have lots of big plans as we get back into the normal cycle of things.
Yeah.
Dynamic Exit, though, great way to go in and play some fun, casual narrative event at your store with your community. Talk a little bit about what players can expect from the scenario before.
So Dynamic Exit is about a crack team.
Crack team. They're all crack teams.
All the crack teams.
I want the C Squad team that doesn't know what it's doing.
That fumbles its way to victory?
Yeah, it just has to fumble its way to victory.
We'll figure out how to make that one interesting. So it's a crack team infiltrating a base and trying to steal specific cargo. So you're kind of playing a shell game where there's these different cargo tokens around the table. You have to hack in, figure out which ones you're looking for, and it's randomized which ones you're looking for every round. So it's different every time you play the game. You'll have different things out there. You'll have to go to different places on the table. And there's sort of a espionage, flat-footed aspect going on. So don't trigger any alarms. And then that won't alert the guards, and then the player playing the guards has to wander around the table and well, I haven't sounded the alarm yet, so what can I do? So there's this whole be sneaky aspect to it, and you get this really interesting and really cool sort of hyper narrative experience of this it kind of reminded me of Solo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where you have Beckett and all them going to steal the train stuff, and it's once the alarm sounds, oh my god, the droids are out and
everything's bad.
Yeah.
So it's a very different way to have a Legion experience.
Very, very, very different than a standard game of Legion.
And of course, all of the store organized play kits that we do, players get all of the materials for the scenario that they get to keep, so you can always play it again with your friends in the future. It kind of goes into your catalog of game options, missions, and scenarios that you can play. So these are really cool ways for us to be able to expand the experience, give you more options and opportunities to play Legion in various ways with your massive collections of stuff, and just have a good time with your friends telling very cool stories on the tabletop.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I think we're to the big thing.
I mean,
the Dark Troopers were the big thing?
The small thing. I mean, they're small. They're small.
Big things come in small packages. That's what I was told.
Numerous small.
I have heard this at least once in my
And
life.
Home and Garden signs wouldn't lie to me.
Never.
Not once.
Never.
Not once.
No advertising with
So with that, you did announce these as well at Star Wars Celebration, and we showed them off.
And we had them in the case. They were
But
beautiful.
we're gonna just dive in.
We have a lot more to
and get
talk about
going.
today.
Yeah, we got.
I didn't talk
we got
about
all
any
the
of the dev
secrets,
things.
all the
Parts.
juiciness.
Yeah.
The
So
beautiful
show
arts.
that beautiful art. Look at that.
Look at them.
You can hear the Ewok tribal music playing at the Endor Heritage Museum of Natural History as you look at this fantastic mural.
So
This is totally what that is.
This piece, Preston and the artist have worked so much on, and it is a natural history piece of the Ewoks. Expect to see this a lot because it's beautiful.
I mean,
We'll put it
the
on
artist made actual physical.
Maquettes, yeah.
Yeah,
Puppet
he did.
maquettes
He did make a
the
maquette, so
space.
he could really pose those Ewoks
Yep.
exactly, and it is just such a phenomenal piece.
And we showed, there's one more piece of art, I think, which is from one of the command cards with the Ewoks being super sneaky.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've worn one of those Stormtrooper helmets, and you would
can't
not know
tell.
that
You would
anything
not
was behind
see
it.
them.
You have
You
zero
Not
idea.
see them.
I feel so
You
much
could
more.
not hear them. You could
No,
not see them.
You'd mostly just hear yourself trying to breathe through the mask. Is
Yeah,
really
like
all
they
that
could
happens.
be in that tree giggling at you, and
you
you
would know.
would not.
You would know.
They look that.
They are.
And we
Yeah.
and we
Look at
did
them.
we did show off the sculpts at Star Wars Celebration, but let's show them in all their glory one more time.
Yeah.
Marco, talk us through fairly quickly, how all this came together.
Yeah, this one was definitely the result of